I will say this year being around the team, I never heard on or off the record a player just openly rip Matt Eberflus, but there were a lot of, I've covered the team long enough. I've been around enough defensive coordinators. There weren't anyone that I really felt like was getting his back either.
Right.
Including Brian Schottenheimer. I thought when we look back on Brian Schottenheimer's first year, a lot of it will be, how he handled a lot of things off the field stuff, obviously the passing of Marshawn Nealon and things like that. But we might look back on how professional he acted about Matt Eberflus and that whole defensive situation, because he never, ever ripped Matt Eberflus like I thought maybe some other coaches would have. And maybe that's just because he's in his first year, or maybe that's just not his style, which I think that's probably more of what it is. But I never heard anyone really defend Matt Eberflus or what the defense was doing. And so you could tell that there's a lot of frustration. And I think that's why an organization like the Cowboys, that we know tends to take a long time with a lot of these decisions, waited less than 2 days after the final game of the season. And we're like, all right, we're making this change now. And it just, to me, feels a lot like 2020, where it was like moving on from Mike Nolan, and we don't have time to try and get a up and coming DC. And we'll get into this. And that's why I don't believe that will be the case. I do believe that it will be a veteran type coach, because you need Brian Schottenheimer to be focused on being the head coach and on the offense. You don't need him in defensive team meeting rooms. You don't need him spending time going over with the DC about how he needs to, maybe you leave the sideline and coach from up in the booth. Like, you can't have that. You have to have somebody where you're like, they can take care of that side of the ball. Players are bought in. Players are learning and adapting to what this system is, what this coach wants to do. And so I think that's what will ultimately happen. But I also think they will bring in multiple candidates and interview multiple people, even though I bet they have a really good idea of who they want. I really do see this as being another Dan Quinn situation, where you could turn this thing around in a year or two and be right back in and at the top of the heap on, head coaching openings around the league if you turn around this defense. And I do believe that players, particularly guys like Quinn and Williams, I know Jadeveon Clowney, don't think that they're as far away as what they showed this year on the field.